Yeah, in your organization, uh, what is the kind of designation that the senior leaders have? For example, does it say VP Asia Pacific, APAC, EMEA? Uh, those kind of designations are there in your organization? Any examples? Very senior leadership, what kind of designations they have?
Sir, good morning. I'm Ashish. So here we have CMO, so kind of profiles, and in general, Middle East, not like
Ashish, I'm not able to hear you. Can you please put it in the chat box? You're not, I think the voice is breaking. Yeah, so Jerry, CXO, yes, but like, what is the, is it a CXO? Yeah, something like that. So CXO overseas and maybe a domestic vice president. You have maybe a vice president for India or head of India operations. Then you have the head of Europe operations. Right? These are some of the designations that organizations have. Now that is a result of the strategy that they are following, right? So we'll see in the further slides. So this is an example where if you have designations like VP of North America, VP of or head of EMEA or head of APAC. Yes, yes. Thanks, Ashish. Yes. So that is a geography focused strategy leading to a geography focused structure. You're focusing on individual markets. In each of the markets, you'll study what is the product that or portfolio of products, set of products, which would work well. What is the localization required? And then you'll focus on the markets, individual markets, right? So that is a geography focused I would say strategy, and then the structure. The other way is you focus on your products. Okay, so here you see Airbus, military, aeronautics, space division, defense and security. You're focusing on your product line, not on geography, right? So this is a product driven structure. So you would have, while you have a VP of India or a VP of APAC or head of APAC, you might also have in some organizations like head of maybe delivery services, right? Global delivery services. So that is more function focused, product focused, right? Here organizations are more aligned to the offering that they have, the product that they have, and from the product they see, okay, how can their standard set of products be offered across different geographies. So the geographies come below. So the priority is to align products first, followed by markets. So that is the other way. Okay. So it focuses on the product strategy, product focused strategy, right, rather than a geography focused strategy. Now, the real generally what happens is, this is the more realistic scenario where you have a headquarter. For example, US is the headquarter. Now in Asia you have an Indian headquarter, right, which is a subsidiary. So this is a geography focus. But in India you are selling maybe only one of your products, not both or whatever the rest of the products, right? Now the person who is responsible for this geography and also knows or is aligned to this product division would be placed here, right? So that is a matrix structure, and generally we all operate in matrix structures, right? Do you have a dual reporting in your role, or do you know anybody doing a dual reporting? Do you have two managers?
Not managers, one like project lead and one project manager.
Okay. So Okay, in one of the previous organizations, we had one manager for India and the other for the product line which we were working in, which is ours was on the ERP side. So we had a ERP function head global, but at the same time we had an Indian function head, right? So and both of them, they were actually we were working closely with them. Similarly, you might be in a CIO office working with business stakeholders. That is another. So when you are reporting, although operationally you are reporting to one, but on a execution level, functional level, you are actually working with other stakeholders like maybe a VP of R&D, VP of marketing, right? So that is more as matrix structure. Now, what is the organization structure of your own organization? Uh, any point of view there? What do you think is your organization structure? Is it geography focused? Is it product focused? Or is it a matrix?
More like hierarchical.
Hierarchical is a format, but what is the, I would say, the, the strategic structure, I would say, rather than a hierarchical? Hierarchical, definitely. But what kind of designations your leaders have? Is it geography designations or functional designations like VP of Finance or VP of India? What kind of designations you have? And then where do your managers or your highest, I would say, highest leadership in your organization reports? Unit head, ISU head. Oh, ISU head would be what? Can you explain?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. You said ISU?
Yes, I think Jaydeep mentioned that in the chat box.
Yes.
ISU. Yeah. India Strategic Unit or something.
Yeah, that can be it. It is like the umbrella, like like functional one technological domain head that involves multiple projects, multiple clients, like that.
Yeah. So that's a good example actually. Um, what do you think maybe the structure of Facebook would be? Would it be more functional or more geographical?
I think, sir, it would be first will be the functional, and each function will be like a cluster will be geographically situated.
Yeah, it is likely that that will happen because they are more tech. It's a tech platform, so they have to be function focused, and then also personalize or localize the platform to the market. For example, in India, they would have to support Hindi or the vernacular languages, right? So that is more functional, but at the same time, because the platform has to be enabled for that, right? But at the same time, that it's only true for India. So they would have something like this matrix structure where the India operations head would say, I need Hindi in the platform. And then he would talk to the engineering division and then you would get it, I would say, rolled out, developed and rolled out. So that can be a possible structure, potential structure. So I hope the whole intent is that please relate to your organization. Please see where how your leadership's designations are. Designation, I don't mean VP or CEO, but after that, what do they write? Do they write CEO of India, or do they write VP of Finance? What is it that the organization is focused on? How are your teams reporting? Are they reporting only to functional heads or to geographical heads or both? So these are the questions you need to ask, and you need to analyze your own organization. That way, it would help to relate to this integration response. Yes, likely. They would have they're heavily localized, so you can say one is geography becomes the key for them. They're a retailer, they cannot plainly copy what they do in US, so they should be focusing more on India. And then to enable their technology products, then they would have some functional heads. But if you talk purely of Amazon.in, which is only the retail part, they would more be geographical. Functional may or may not, but priority is geography. If you talk about Alexa, their technical product line, then they are they can be more matrix, which is first geography and then the engineering.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what is next. Yeah. So we have discussed this. So strategy is basically driving the structure, right? Structure also kind of it's not a sequential process or static process. You will say, okay, this might be an ideal structure for me in this market, but you'll also see after implementing the structure that maybe I can tweak it after learning from what structure you have implemented. You can tweak it, so they are not static. Okay. Uh, yeah, and coming back to our your fundamental frameworks, the institution and the resource based, right? So both of them have a heavy impact on the way your organization is structured, you're formulating your strategy, and the way you learn from whatever you are doing and then implementing it. So continuously improving it. So for example, there are government related regulations. If you are in sensitive sectors like mining, right, you need to have a liaison with the government. You need to have a I would say license. You need to have some of these standard formal parameters would be factored for, in fact, any manufacturing, right? uh, then there is the resource part. Now if you are coming to India and you're setting up maybe a hub, IT hub, then you would look at, okay, I have actually, why will you come to India in the first place? You'll say, okay, I need some maybe innovation related skill set. So you would have seen in the news also, we have jumped significantly higher in the innovation index, global innovation index. So that makes India much more attractive now. There is a data point there to refer to for businesses. So you might see many more R&D centers coming here in India, or many more big companies setting up their innovation centers, right? So those things would be the resource based, capability based, right, where you have the VRIO framework where you can use to build your resource capability. So all this would impact. Now if you are a very function technology, not only information technology, maybe manufacturing technology, any tech, then if you have those resources, you may say, okay, I would be more product or technology driven. I would have resources around that. My structure would reflect that I prioritize my product line above geography, right? If you are more expanding your market, that okay, I just need to maybe expand. I was selling iPhones in US only. Let me actually start selling it in India also. Let me see, okay, maybe there might be some compliances. I will see data privacy, all those things. But I can just simply start selling it. So product is my focus, right? I'm already manufacturing it. So that becomes a more geography driven approach, right? So that's where, again, I would say you look at your own organization and see what is more dominant. It would be both. It would be the technical know-how of whatever we are doing, plus there would be a market element to it. So what is it more heavy? You will see in the designations, in the way your team, your unit is structured, right? Yeah, this we have just covered. So M&Es have to adhere to additional compliances or barriers they have to overcome as compared to the local firms, because there are institutional barriers. It can be formal or informal barriers that we have seen in previous chapters, right? Uh, at the same time, you would see Modi pitching in for FDI, trying to attract more and more businesses, because again, that showcases the growth of the country. This global innovation index in jumping so many ranks up, that is an indicator again. So the governments also try to attract at the same time some foreign institutional or foreign direct investment also, right? They can also, like as mentioned here, they can also force. So, for example, Pepsi has sued, I think, some farmers in Gujarat, where they were saying that they have started using the ways and the proprietary ways in which potato is cooked, potato is grown, and that was patented or something by Pepsi, and they had sued the farmers, and government forced them to actually drop that case, because that would otherwise they would cancel the license of Pepsi to manufacture in either in Gujarat or maybe in entire India. Right? So it can be both ways. It can raise barriers, also facilitate. Right? We have seen again the informal institutions, right? And then time to time you would see those in the news, where when Jeff Bezos came to India, he declared that he would ensure some of the local merchants are exposed on Amazon.com, and that they would actually have at least a minimum quota of products from India going into the global market. So that is more, I would say, informal pressure which gets created for the companies, the global companies, to hire locally. All those things, they make a lot of I would say influencing factors, right? Yeah. So this is kind of a repeat again, whatever we have discussed just now. So a home country has generally, I would say, like Alibaba, not Alibaba, it's not standard, maybe Amazon. So Amazon has the for example, head of Indian, maybe if they have a American running the Indian subsidiary, although they're not, but that happens. Like for example, in Shell, initially there was the European person running the Indian subsidiary, right? The normal option is to um, select somebody local, maybe not instantly, but over a period of time, hand over the leadership to the local country, right? And then the other one is like neither India nor US, somebody else only will come and start running things. So that would be the third country. So these are some of the things that companies do, and again, they have considerations on the cost benefit, right? Yeah. So again, we have seen the matrix structure and how it creates value, right? So you have to factor the VRIO there and see what would lead to maximum revenues. That is the question, right? So and what would minimize the risk, right? So these are the, I would say again, the repeat points which we have been discussing, right? So when it comes to resource-based view, it is more internal to the organization, whereas the institution-based view is more responding to the environment in which the firm is operating. 3M is a good example. Definitely agree. They have very, very innovative products and very relevant to the local market. They are also structured in that particular way. The way they do research is also very highly localized approach. So definitely 3M is a very innovative company that way. Right. So the slides are basically talking about the VRIO. So value, this is rarity, right? And again, we have discussed, like if you're looking for technical resources or skill sets which are, or even resources, for example, coal or oil, then you need to factor those and take the decisions. Then imitability is the competitive part, which Jaideep was also mentioning. So the more imitable, the higher the competition. So you have to see how do you raise barriers to entry for something which may be imitable. Maybe you just become the first mover in the category and you just take over the market and set up your own, I would say, network of distributors, retailers, whatever. You are your own partner network. So it becomes difficult to expand in that market.
But sir, in this way, like competitors may be already well established in the other market. They may already have a network for other products. But when you enter with a new product, they may compete very well.
Definitely. So that's why you need to take a call. See, if it is too imitable, you may not enter the market actually, right? That is also a scenario. Now, if some other company along with Amazon or Flipkart needs to enter India in e-commerce, it would be a big challenge for them, very big challenge for them. Right? But if there is a category which not many players are there, then you can actually see if you can enter that particular market. And the imitability is not only with respect to the I would say the product, but also with respect to the skills that is required to execute it, right? So, for example, Google, people can actually, I would say, Google is facing this challenge where there are now very specific focused engines, search engines, which are coming in, which are much more matured and much more accurate and provide a much richer experience as compared to Google. So Google is a generic search engine, but when it comes to specific categories, then there are these search engines which are now creeping in. So it was perceived to be not imitable, but that is slowly kind of eroding away. Right? So it depends on what kind of category you are in and what kind of resources also you have, right? And again, you have to continuously develop. So Google has to come out with something new now, right, to compete with these individual search engines, right? One of the ways is it starts showing, for example, when you look for flights, it'll start summarizing all the websites, what are all the prices that are available on those websites. So although the individual websites like Expedia, Yatra, they have their own search engine, but this is the search engine of search engines, right? So that is one way it was trying, but still the movement is more, the user base is moving more towards specific search engines and the culture of the organization. So again, Google is famous for it. All the most of the tech companies, they have a very unique organization culture, which replicates or basically resonates with the informal setup of the country they are in, right? So that is where this also creates a lot of barriers to imitate. You really cannot imitate organization culture immediately. It's not a assembly line, right? Yeah. So that can itself be a barrier because not all organizations can actually follow the same culture, right? So those also differentiate and create barriers for competitors. Okay. Um, Now, in all this, for example, you think of again Amazon or okay, your own organization, right? So when you are connecting to your counterparts in the other market, the first thing that you do for a project is knowledge transition, right? Or at least there is a session of exchange of notes. So when you are talking to people or your counterparts in a global or another market, the key connector there is knowledge management, and knowledge management forms the fundamental, I would say, a way in which the global organizations especially operate. We have continuously we are seeing improvement in knowledge management technologies, right? So you have a SharePoint now, Office 365, you have file sharing systems, uh, file update, real-time updates. You have collaborative systems which ensure that all the people can work together, especially now in remote scenario, right? So knowledge management is like a fundamental bedrock of any global organization. Now, that itself can create barriers to globalization for a business. Yes, Jerry, please go.
Yeah, I just remember we also have to do transfer of knowledge during shift change. Like after the morning shift is over, before the morning shift employees leave, they transfer the knowledge, state of issues and all to the next shift employees and then leave.
Definitely. So that is another example or another instance of this, right? Now, if the knowledge management for a global organization doesn't happen, then it becomes a very big problem for them. Now, it might there might be a formal process like you have to follow certain steps, but it is the major component of it is in the informal part, which is culture, which is the ability to resonate, the kind of frequency you have with your stakeholders, right? So those become so important, especially when companies are talking across divisions, across geographies, right? Now, that is where you would find instances of this, these there is something called a siloed innovation, where one portion of the company is very mature, very highly matured in, coming out with innovative products, whereas the other parts of the companies don't even know about it, or they are also trying their own, and they are coming out with the same set of innovations. So there is a siloed innovation, or there is lack of awareness. Those are some of the barriers, but nobody is stopping them to share, just that the culture is not there to share knowledge, or there's no incentive. So when we talk about knowledge, like Jaideep mentioned, there is something called structured knowledge, very explicit. These are the tickets, these are the SOPs, these are the things that we have to do. Everything is codified, right? The software is a explicit knowledge. It's a codified set of lines which do a particular task. So it's an explicit codified knowledge, right? Any book you read, these slides, these are codified knowledge, right? But then there is the tacit knowledge. Tacit would be something which is in our head. So there is knowledge in the head and knowledge in the world. Now, tacit knowledge is not instant also. It cannot be like the moment you read something, you are able to understand. But tacit knowledge is also learned over a period of time, right? So, for example, in sales, right, you would have a set of clients. Now, if some new salesperson joins, there is a sales process to be followed. He'll also follow the same thing. But the person who is already talking to the clients would have some, I would say, yeah, definitely. That's a barrier. No, the knowledge can be easily encrypted and can be very, very access driven, I would say. And these are formal or informal barriers, both. So tacit knowledge would be, just going back to the example, it can be like the same salesperson, because he has worked for maybe a few years and knows people. He knows how to start the conversation, what are the key points that would actually attract. So the same set of slides can be presented in a very different way by the salesperson who is new as compared to the one who is already managing the clients, right? So that is tacit knowledge. It has to be, it is generally learned over a period of time, and it's very difficult to codify. You cannot codify the way you talk to people, right? Or maybe you can in conversational AI, but what matters or what is actually the trigger for conversations? What not to say? What should be highlighted? Those things, right? So that is very tacit knowledge, and we all do that when we deal with our managers, when we deal with our team members, colleagues. We really know what the tacit knowledge part of it. But if there is a new member who is onboarded in the team, we generally say, you take your time, you'll get to know the team and you get to know the way we work, right? That is what, when we are saying that, we are saying you will gain the tacit knowledge over a period of time. Okay. So that is very difficult, and you imagine that at a global scale, when a company is operating across multiple markets, how difficult it is for companies to have, manage this tacit knowledge, right? So that is where this kind of represents the complexity of knowledge management across the different strategies that companies follow, right? So the strategy we have seen, 4 strategies are followed: home replication, localization, global standardization, and transnational, right? Now, on the knowledge management side, what are the factors? There can be a complete interdependence, which is you are working together very in a very smooth manner. Then there can be a foreign subsidiary. So, for example, Amazon's foreign subsidiary would be India. Right? Now, Indian subsidiary starts for home replication. It starts replicating their culture as is. That is under the home replication strategy. Now, the localization would be no, we will actually follow whatever is India specific. So we incorporate Amazon India, and it should be an Indian company, something like that. Then the global standardization is a mix of both, which can be something good from the parent company, whereas something else from the local market. Transnational can be the Amazon India corporate starts talking to your maybe Amazon China or Amazon Indonesia, and come out with something with respect to APAC, right? So that is transnational, where the subsidiaries themselves start talking to each other, and they start collaborating, right? So I'll just go through this table carefully, and this might be a very I would say important question for your exams also. It basically represents the kind of combinations which can happen in knowledge management. Okay, and the role of the subsidiary, right? The role of the knowledge management system, and how does the knowledge flow? The knowledge flow is fairly straightforward, because home replication, the knowledge should flow from the parent to the subsidiary. Localization would be, no, we don't really need much parent company knowledge. We can do locally. Then global standardization would be both, and then the transnational would be across all. So I am not only talking to my parent, I am talking to other subsidiaries also to acquire knowledge. So the knowledge management is like a fundamental building block of any multinational company. Okay. Yeah. So these are we will see what are some of the parameters or some of the variables which govern this knowledge management. Okay. Now, and yeah, so you'll be able to relate to most of this, because that's how we work generally. So we are a part of a global virtual team. We all have stakeholders which are in other markets. We generally never meet face to face. We meet mostly over meetings, which is through Skype or Teams or whatever we follow in communication, right? Absorptive capacity would be basically if somebody is giving you knowledge transfer, how much actually are able to understand and apply it, right? Social capital would be within the particular office or within the particular country, what kind of relationships exist between among the employees and of the employees with the organization. So for example, in Amazon US, the employees as well as the organizations have organization has very good relationship. They're very much in sync with the principles, the values, the way they work. But maybe Amazon India, although people are happy with each other, but they may not be that happy with the organization. There have been complaints, right, with the way Amazon extracts work out of people in their warehouses, right? So that is on the more on the social capital. What happens here is when people are not happy with the organization, they stop sharing knowledge. They just don't codify the knowledge that they have learned. Right? So that is another can be a barrier to knowledge sharing. Then there is a macro link where I would say the way, for example, your the parent organization, the way managers or leaders behave towards the leaders in the subsidiary organizations. They treat them below or they treat them along as a peers. So those also start impacting, because if at that level there is not much sync, the macro link, then the entire knowledge management system kind of it becomes a vacuum, because your manager will not encourage, then the entire team doesn't do anything, right? Or the entire unit doesn't do anything on that line. So these are some of the common problem areas. So while acquiring knowledge, the sharing doesn't happen. Retention, because the employees don't have very good relationship with the organization, there's a lot of turnover, and then retention is low. Knowledge outflow. So whatever you are learning, you're really questioning why actually, what is in it for me, and or you are simply just not telling it to anybody. You are not transferring it to your team. You are saying, okay, if I know more, I have more power. That is a traditional mindset. Then the knowledge transmission, while sharing the knowledge, you might be taking up maybe somebody, when the team you are working with, you might be taking up their time which was supposed to be their personal time, or they were supposed to be busy with some other work. You have kind of barged into their regular work. So then you're not actually forming the appropriate channels to share the knowledge or transfer the knowledge. And then on the knowledge inflow, which is coming from parent into a subsidiary, it would be like, oh, we didn't do it. We are just following what they told. So it can be with respect to technology, it can be with respect to products, right? You feel like there's nothing new done here. We are just simply following what our parent company says. So these are some of the areas. There can be more, but this is one, I would say, some of the problem statement. And this is quite old, also 2004. So you can also relate to your own set of areas which you can refer to. Any questions? No questions? Okay. Interesting. Now, there is another trade-off which happens when it comes to strategy for a multinational company or a global company. How much of corporate control from the parent company should be kept versus how much freedom should be given to the subsidiaries? Right? Now, if you give too much freedom, then they may get out of control. They may just start formulating their own strategy, which may not be in line with the parent company strategy. Then you'll have to do a lot of, I would say, spend a lot of time and effort in bringing control back. So, or is it beneficial? How much beneficial is it? Right? If we give too much control, does it mean that we are actually not able to realize the maximum value out of the subsidiary? Right? So these are the questions that the trade-offs that have to happen.
So yes, so like the subsidiary may have a CEO, but parent holding company will also have a chairman that the CEO should report to.
Yes. So generally that's what happens, right? So the reporting is to a global, I would say, global team, right? And they have to report. Literally, they have to report to them, meaning they have to make everything transparent, and they have to keep them updated about whatever is happening in the market, right? So that is the way the parent company is exercising control. They're ensuring that they are aware of what is happening, that it is happening in line with their expectations, right? So if you miniaturize this to maybe your relationship with your manager, for example, right? You might have to do some weekly reporting or monthly reporting of your activities. We fill a timesheet, right? That is the way we show to the organization that our organization has certain controls and helps monitor the employees, right? Otherwise, people will just do what they want or may not follow the ways of working. So now imagine that at a global level, which is one subsidiary market reporting to the parent market, right? So they would be more focused on things like revenues, things like what are the I would say policies which have been enforced, how uniformly have they been enforced. All those questions would be more, these are all strategic questions, okay? So they may not be very operational. So this meeting or reporting may not happen on a monthly basis also. It might be quarterly also, right? These can be monthly management reviews, it can be quarterly reviews, it can be yearly reviews, where the head of the market, which can be a, you can say head of APAC, goes to meet goes to meet the CEO of the organization in US and reports whatever is happening. So this is very uh, high level leadership. When I say high level, meaning organization structure wise, these are executive leadership. Yes, definitely. So you can imagine that kind of. Now there is Tata Motors in UK also, right? So maybe the Tata Motors, the UK CEO reports to Tata Motors India CEO, and then it goes to Ratan Tata, right? So that's how that is the scenario we are talking about. Now, the parent company has to ensure whatever their strategy is being executed. So this is a matter of control. At the same time, they may not allow much autonomy because of that, and they might be this might result in frictions, maybe between employees and the organization, local organization, or between the subsidiary and the parent itself, right? So that is where I would say these scenarios, that is the scenario that we are talking about and how to manage it actually, right? So I'm not able to read this, 1 second. Yeah, okay. So then there is this scenario of whether you are actually pleasing the customer or you are trying to please your parent company, right? So generally the trade-off is balanced using a customer focus. That's where you would see customer-centric organization, right? So whenever there are these strategic questions, what should we do, what should we not do, the question is generally answered, is it benefiting the customer and is it making money for us, right? So if that happens, then most of these trade-offs are resolved, okay? Now, that is where there are some global account structures where you would have big accounts. I think almost all of us work in organizations which have very, very big key accounts. Now, that itself becomes an organization where you are serving, for example, a particular team. Like you can take, for example, Airbus or a Walmart. Walmart has its own IT, so Airbus, for example, or a Wells Fargo, or any big bank. Now, for example, in Infi is famous for having these big financial institutions as their accounts. Now, there is a dedicated team, dedicated structure across the globe serving that account. Some people in the team might be residing in US, some would be in India, some would be in Europe, but that is the account, dedicated, and that is the team dedicated to that account. Right? So this is across parent and subsidiary companies. That kind of smoothens some of the frictions because you are serving one customer, key account. Right? Then there is the solutions based. Solutions based is, okay, you're developing one product. For example, you are saying, okay, I'm in Facebook. I'm in India. I'm in Facebook. I am working with actually the people in US and coming out with, we are shipping these new features maybe on a monthly basis. So I really don't feel that I'm talking to a parent company. I'm in a subsidiary company. Those things, they don't come up. You start focusing on your solutions, on your technology, on your products, and you work together. Right? So either you focus on your customer or geography, or you focus on your product. So again, we go into the responsiveness, integration responsiveness. Either you are product focused or you are geography focused. And that also smoothens out some of these frictions of subsidiary and parent controls. Right? So basically, whatever this is, I would say the typical summary we have for every chapter. So you need to, from a strategic perspective, you need to understand the two key questions. Do you simply go about manufacturing or offering the same set of products and services to other markets which you want to enter? Do you have to replicate your home capability and products? Do you want to localize it? What is that balance you want to have? And if you're establishing, if you're having a subsidiary, how much of control you want? It depends on what your strategy is. Your home replication strategy will require a very tight coupling with your subsidiaries, right? Because you really want to replicate everything. So your knowledge management will also be replicated. Your structure, organization structure will also be replicated. Whereas for a transnational strategy, which is other extreme, you might end up giving a lot of independence to all the subsidiaries. They might have their own organization structures. And because you want some local innovation to happen. So the core strategy is what dictates the structure, the knowledge management, and the behavior, the relation with the subsidiaries. We also saw that strategy is not static. It always, you have to continuously learn and then continuously improve on that strategy. So any questions? That's the chapter. Anyone? Any questions? Okay. I'm assuming no questions. So I think right now it's 11. Yeah. So we can take a 15-minute break maybe. We can start at 11:15 and we'll finish the next chapter, and then we'll also talk about the exam format and Any questions
Okay,
on
sir.
that? Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll meet at 11:15. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Recording. Okay. Now, this is the final chapter, global business. So, basically, this deals with the HR side of it. So, you might find some overlaps with the HR course that you have learned. Wherever there is some specific global business element, we'll touch upon that. The key part is, do you have any foreigners working with you in your own office from another geography? They are here working with you. I mean, now remotely, but they are based in India. Anyone?
Or like collaborating with foreigners, colleagues working on the same project.
No, that generally happens. Or the other way, anybody who is posted, you know, on site or maybe with the team which is based in another country for a assignment, like for a particular project. Anybody who knows that okay, there is some person who is placed in another geography from India. So they would have gone to US or whatever, Europe, some country for a project, but for a long term, maybe at least 1 year.
Yes, sir. I've done that.
You have done that. So um, what were you categorized at as? Like you were. There are different terms, but then were you categorized as an expat for that time?
Yes, sir. As an
Expatriate?
expert. Yes.
Okay. And were you like initially how was the discussion? Who started the discussion and how did you choose it?
It was basically the CEO's call. He wanted the entire team which I'm handling. He
Mhm.
wanted it under his watch for a period of time. So he called us over to Dubai and handle the same ops we are handling here. He asked us to handle it over there.
And what was the reason? Like, why did you want somebody directly working co-located with him?
Basically, he wanted to look at the process himself, because out of all the global processes, this particular process is close to his heart. So he
Okay,
wanted to oversee how is our operations working, and he wanted to maybe make some changes and bring in some new innovation.
awesome. Now, when that happened, did you have a discussion with the HR, local HR here in India?
A discussion about what, sir?
No, so okay, what was the process like when the CEO mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
Um, were firstly were people given a choice that okay, you may choose to go there or you may continue here itself?
Yes, that option was given, and being a small team, mostly it was instantly everyone said yes, so we are ready to come.
Yeah, so at least there was that question. Now, why did you and your team wanted to actually on your when you think of your side of things?
Yeah.
So, what were the reasons? Why was it an attractive proposition for you to work with
Yes.
to
Yes,
go
sir.
abroad and be there for some time?
Yes, sir. It was basically the start of the career. So any opportunity which comes our way, the youngsters tend to pick it. And at that time, going to Dubai and working that lifestyle was very much attractive.
Okay,
So everyone was instantly ready to go there.
Okay, great. And that's where I was asking. So, was there, and you need not share details, but was there a restructuring of your, for example, how was the compensation the same way given when you were staying in Dubai, or were there some additional components?
No, actually, it was almost a change of payroll. We were under the Dubai payroll in that standard.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would have been done by the HR and the payroll team, right?
Yes, sir. We have the global HR in head office Dubai, so they took care of it.
Okay, yeah. And any other, I mean, experience you want to share being an expat? How does it feel? What are your views?
Yes, sir. Basically, within the organization, there were other nationalities, and even though the work we all do is same, the pay scale was different for a European, and I believe I shared this information earlier. I'm not sure whether in this class. So the pay scale was different for a European and different for a Pakistani or Bangladeshi or Indian
Yeah,
for
you
that
have
matter.
shared that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So in pay scale wise, that was different. Even the approach was different.
How about
Indian approach was different.
living there, working there? How was it? How was the experience?
Yeah, basically we were confined inside a free zone area, so it is off the city.
Okay.
So access to the city was quite difficult unless you own a car or you have a car. You cannot go to the city very frequently. Otherwise, it's very expensive to travel to the city.
Okay. Okay.
But in our case, one of our colleague had a car, so we could go to the city during the weekends. It was good.
Awesome. Great. So, thanks, Rajesh. I think you have covered the chapter actually.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Aman also wants to share something. Aman, Aman, you're on mute. Uh, yeah, please go ahead.
I don't have anything. Actually, I send you a link.
You have also been an expat.
No, no, no. I'm just listening.
Okay. Sure. So, thanks for sharing, Rajesh. So, this chapter is about what just Rajesh mentioned, the dimensions of global human resource management. So, when your company is spread across the globe, you have talents across different markets, and how do you manage that talent pool? Right. One question, Rajesh, I have one more question is how about appraisal? Was there any difference in the appraisal process or was it the same? The process I'm saying, not, uh, I mean the details, but the process overall, appraisal was same process which is followed in India?
Yes, sir. The appraisal we have is globally they follow the same pattern.
Oh,
As usual, we fill in those appraisal forms and it goes for review with the HR and the manager.
okay.
So there was
And
no change about it.
being an expat, does it, does it have a weightage in your appraisal?
Um, Not
Does it?
really, sir. I
Okay.
understand the question. Weightage and being expat, I don't think so. No.
Okay.
In fact, it is actually less because their mindset is that being an expat, uh, where I was earning half the money in India, for the same job, I'm earning double the money in Dubai. So they don't really consider that I really deserve another hike because I'm already earning more than I'm supposed to.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's the mindset.
But when you came back to India, what, I mean, uh, was there any change in the appraisal process or it remained the same?
It remained the same, sir.
Oh,
Our CEO was generous enough to keep it same.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rajesh. So yeah, this chapter basically deals about the global talent and the entire HR process, employee lifecycle management, where the people working with you have the choice of moving across markets. So how do you manage HR globally, right? So we need not talk about human resource management. I think you would have had a complete course on it. So human resource management we are all aware of. Staffing is a key function where recruitment of the relevant talent is done to fill up the positions, right? And staffing in a global context takes a new dimension where we just touched upon it in the previous chapter also. So, for example, an a US company in India will hire the Indian national. So, they are the locals. We are the host country in that case. Expats would be like Rajesh traveling to Middle East, right? So that would be an expat. So if somebody from an Indian subsidiary goes into their parent subsidiary, or maybe in another country for a long-term assignment, then that becomes an expat. The parent country national is the other way, right? From US coming in the local subsidiary, and third country would be none from the parent or the host. Somebody like a US subsidiary operating in India, but somebody from Australia comes. So that is a third country national. So these are the what kind of terms here, right? And these are also done for different reasons. So, like Rajesh mentioned, that CEO was particularly interested in a particular process, and that's why he wanted better visibility control. So then he is a parent country national. Actually, he wanted better control, right? So then he called the Indian team to work with him directly. Third country national, what it does is it brings a unbiased perspective in the ways of working, and then the host country national is generally the option which is chosen because they know the local market and the people, the informal institutions, and they're generally cheaper. Okay. Now, we have studied this term ethnocentric in the beginning of the course. Anybody can recollect what is ethnocentric?
Is it like evaluating, judging other countries' cultures, norms based on the standards of one's own host parent company's standards of culture, norms, practices?
So ethnocentric is basically an absolute standard, right? We remember if you, we are talking about different kind of cultures. So ethnocentric culture is basically uh, saying that whatever we believe in is the true, only absolute truth. There is nobody else knows that truth. So US is a classic example of an ethnocentric country or a culture where me. The moment you say ethnocentric, it's that is the keyword. Me. I am the one who knows everything. Everybody else has to follow what I know. Now that culture translates into approach for staffing, which means whatever hiring I do, whatever staffing I do, it really is driven by the parent country, wherever the parent company is. Right? So that is an ethnocentric approach. Then they would look for people with similar, who can follow their norm, right? They may not give much autonomy. They'll say, okay, this is what we believe in, you have to follow it. That's all. Geocentric is again relatively localized. It says a geocentric approach is colorblind because it doesn't matter which country you belong to, which passport do you have. So geocentric is basically you really don't care about where the employee is located or the talent is. You just need the right talent. So that's relatively more autonomous. Polycentric is, most of the companies are polycentric, which is they just localize themselves in the way they work, especially culturally. Expatriation is what you from your own local country you get into another in an assignment which makes you spend time in some other country and for a longer period of time, at least one appraisal cycle, that kind of. So that is expatriation. Okay, now just related to the strategy, that is the interesting part. We saw 4 strategies in the last chapter, where there was home replication, localization, standardization, and transnational. Now, if you relate that strategy to the way the company hires, home replication is very close to ethnocentric because I just want to replicate. I really don't want diversity per se. Localization is polycentric because you want local people to take control of the business and you want local products, services. Global and transnational would be a mix, right? So generally it would be either geocentric or polycentric. Ethnocentric, there might be scenarios, but because the many strategies are more now localized, focused on localization or maybe transnational, that's where we see more polycentric or geocentric kind of stuffing. So Rajesh, when you were in the Middle East,
Yes, sir.
yeah, you were an expert, right, in the process. You had the know-how of the processes that your team undertakes or executes, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, I mean, they have mentioned, the textbook mentions some roles which experts take, like a strategist, execution, daily manager, ambassador, trainer. What would explain your role the best? Or is there another role?
No, daily manager, sir.
Daily manager. Yeah. What about, did you give any training to the team there?
Yes, for a shorter period of time, there are other country operations, which is being, basically we do logistics, freight forwarding. So there are other departments where they can use our inputs, and they can see how we handle the process, and even though the country requirements are different. So I was there to give some training on how our operations work to the other teams.
So then this kind of explains quite well the kind of roles you adopted and executed, right, for as an expat. So generally an expat, expat is generally I would say a cost to the company, but there are a lot of benefits which expats provide. Now the benefits are these roles which they take, and they help in dissemination of knowledge or management of operations, or they represent the best practices in the organization. So that's how companies are ready to take that extra cost and then ensure that they are actually disbursed across the organization, disseminated across the organization. So these are some of the roles that experts take. Strategists would be for example, from Indian subsidiary, you go into the US subsidiary, your parent company, and you actually you represent your point of view. You are a business strategist, so your point of view, right? And along with that, what are the cost benefit for operating in your through the subsidiary? How can it benefit the parent company? All those things. So you are a good strategist, and you are actually liked by the parent company, and you are called there for giving strategic advice. Then there is the execution. You are execution training and ambassador. So you are good. You are an expert. You are good at and you are I would say you're known in the company for your work, and then you are also um either allocated or you're requested to take up an assignment which expands your capabilities and horizon, so spectrum basically. So that is another, I would say, scenario for expats. And that's why I was asking question to Rajesh, because of one of the idea was to understand what factors actually influence the selection, or why did he select an expat role. Now, um, obviously there is a technical capability, cross-cultural adaptability. Then on the personal side, you would have to factor family considerations, right? Corporate headquarters, the CEO wanted that he be there. He wanted a visible, you know, monitoring of the process and sharing of best practices, right? Host country, so India's office would have agreed that yes, we are fine, we can send Rajesh, and language. So he knows there would be a common language, which would be, I think, English, which would become the medium of communication when he was abroad. So these are some of the factors. So these, if you see, are divided. One is the context, right, in which the expat is called, and then there are the individual parameters. So these combine together to influence the expat selection. Um, then sometimes there is something called a sensitivity training given to expats, and I would say they themselves are actually sent for training also to another location. Then expats are also, when they're offered this position of expat, they're also told that it will help you in development, in your career development. That becomes another attraction, right? Um, the opposite of expat is the repatriation, right? So when Rajesh would have come back, there would have been some processes which after he would have returned, or before returning actually, they would have gotten triggered of maybe the global HR processes, maybe reassigning the team, or even it starts from as simple as reallocating the office space, right? The operations part, everything. So that is the repatriation process, which is returning of the expat. Now there is a big psychological element associated with being an expat, because when you are, and especially in India, we do see that, right? Foreign return is a very common term, foreign return. So that is a psychological expectation, which becomes a psychological contract, that I have done something outside, maybe I'll reap some benefits because of that, right? There are certain the flip side also, where it can lead to career anxiety, right? You might actually enter an organization in your headquarters which is much bigger. In your subsidiary, you're actually a big person in your subsidiary, but in the headquarters you don't have much control, right? Then what Rajesh mentioned, that maybe that mindset of, okay, you are earning almost double, then you come back, then maybe you don't need a appraisal or a increment, because that mindset is there. And obviously on the individual side, if there are family related variables, then that is also, um, I would say, it needs to be considered. Right? Now,
Yes, sir. The previous slide was very accurate, sir.
okay, thanks. So and then I would say the people who have written this book, they have done the research. Then, yeah. Then yeah, there is a I mean, and we all have this training and development. We all have a roadmap. We have our learning management system, career path, career goals. All is there, right? That is for host country nationals is basically us. We are the local people of an Indian subsidiary of a foreign firm. So we are always told that, okay, this year along with your KPIs, this is your training and development goal, and it is given some weightage. Depends on the priority of the organization. It varies from very low to very high, or just like a checkbox. Okay, this is also done. But some companies take it very diligently, right? So that helps in the locals become more competitive and eligible for being an expat. So how does compensation happen? So one way is, like Rajesh mentioned, that the moment you switch to another geography, you are on the roles of that geography. So that becomes a going rate approach, right? Uh, the other one is the balance sheet approach. So where the place where you are moving to, there is a cost of living, and then the place where you are in, for example, in India, there is a cost of living. So cost of living can be measured by, so, your simple variables like the cost of buying a burger here in India. We saw that in the Big Mac index, right, in one of the chapters. Whereas cost of buying a burger in US. Now the difference between those two is what is compensated for, so that the overall, I would say, compensation, it remains same, just that the balance is factored, and so that the employee can continue to avail the same benefits, so that there is no difference in the package. It is just a factoring of offsetting the cost of living. Okay. So if you are coming from going from India to US, you might see an increase, but that is not because of cost, because of hike or increment. It is because the cost of living has been factored. But if a US person is coming to India, right, he might also, and if this is balance sheet approach, then he might see a decrease actually. Right? So that becomes an unattractive proposition for that person. Okay, so the going rate and balance sheet both have their, I would say, advantages and disadvantages. For example, if you are choosing the balance sheet approach, generally the currencies which have higher value, people would like to move upwards towards that currency as compared to downwards, where from dollar to rupee or dollar to some other, any other, generally most of them are lower. Right? The other way is also there, where on the going rate, you actually get a good compensation for a higher value currency. But when you come back from the assignment, then you are again, the entire payroll changes, the entire compensation changes. You are remapped to your compensation structure, and that kind of creates a lot of dissonance. Right? So both have advantages, disadvantages. Good question for an exam, so please take note of this. So yeah, this is some hypothetical structure that they have created, like base salary, cost of living, overseas premium is something which is added, hardship allowance is added, housing deduction happens because the expat is moving, so whatever HRA was being given is deducted, but these are added. So this becomes a enhanced compensation structure basis the balance sheet approach. The cost of living is higher 20% higher. So that's why overall there is a, but it doesn't mean that the salary has increased. It is just to adjust for the cost of living and the I would say some of the benefits are being provided. And these might be components which would be individual to a company, right? So that encourages people to take up these assignments. So yeah, we talked about the Big Bank Index, and I think here they have tried to represent it in a different way, where they have taken New York as the base, so that is 100, and against that they have said, okay, what is the relative ranking? So if New York is 100, Tokyo is 150, which means it's more costly. If you talk about Mumbai is like almost half, less than half. So a Mumbai person getting into New York would require almost twice the compensation just to adjust the cost of living. And with that doesn't mean any hike. It is just to manage the cost of living. Hike would be on top of it. Same way, if a New Yorker is coming to Mumbai, it may not be very attractive for them if it is the balance sheet approach, because it would be almost half. And this is very old now. This is 2007, so you can easily Google it up. The cost of living.
So
Yeah.
sorry, this cost of living, does it account for the taxes which we have to pay in that local country?
Yeah. So cost of living is more. Yeah, when you're buying some things, right? For example, products like milk or burger, there is a taxation which is the MRP has the tax included.
I'm talking about the income tax. If in case I get a job in US,
Yeah.
the half of my salary will go in tax, they say.
Yeah.
So does it account for that?
No, that doesn't get accounted here. So that depends also on the company, right? What kind of visa you have, right? So H1B and all those things. So there are companies. So companies use those variables to their benefit, so that they have to pay minimum and get the maximum amount, right?
Yeah.
So if employees have to pay half their compensation for taxes, it may not be very attractive for the employees. So they find ways through visa, through other routes to minimize those taxations.
Oh, okay, sir.
Well, yeah, Jaideep.
The benefits will be very much high because the cost of living in Mumbai is maybe half of that of New York, but still all employees would prefer to be in New York rather than Mumbai.
That depends, Jaideep. So people may or may not choose to be in New York compared to Mumbai. Depends on different factors which we just saw before these slides. But the cost of living is something they'll experience once they shift to New York, right? So that again, you can see within India itself, there are tier 1 cities like Mumbai, Delhi, and then there are tier 2, tier 3 cities. So cost of living varies a lot. If you're earning some X in a tier 1 town, maybe 70% of X can work in a tier 2 town. That's how it would be managed by the company. Company will see the cost benefit, and they would have some incentive for people to take an expat role. That's it. They will not see beyond that. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, this talks about some of the scenarios for the locals, right? So when we are asked for some expat role, we really don't have much negotiation power, right? especially because we are in developing. So as even Jaideep was mentioning, we would rather be in New York. So the moment we get an assignment, we may not be very hard on negotiation. Right? So yeah, I mean, these are some of the factors. We are already low cost labor, and we would rather, experience a developed country at a lower cost, right? So the appraisal process, I mean, all of us are aware of the annual appraisal which happens. Then there is a mid-year also in between, right? And generally in the technology sector, the labor relations, which means the unions are discouraged, right? And the multinational companies always encourage discourage unions or non-unionized workforce. They encourage those primarily because it impacts the I would say the ways of working and the bargaining power also. There are both sides to it, but primarily it helps the companies. Now, from our two fundamental frameworks, how do they impact this global HR management processes? So when you are in an expat country, which is a foreign country, you need to follow the rules of the norms of the particular country. At the same time, you also have to follow the norms of or the values of your own organization, which have to be constant. So like Rajesh was mentioning, there is a global HR process. Wherever you are in the company, the HR process is uniform. So that is a very formal factor that has to be taken care of. At the same time, there are things like sensitivity training towards culture. So if you are moving to a different culture, what you should do, what you should not do, all those things are to be factored. That is on the informal. Then we have seen the resource based, where the company will take a call for an expat because the expat is providing some value. The expat is basically disseminating something which is rare, right? Some process knowledge, technical knowledge. Those things are factored from the resource base. That's more internal to the team, to the firm. So all these combined, they actually dictate the staffing decisions, the training development, the compensation, performance appraisal, and the labor regulation. All the slides which we saw before. Yeah, so institution, we just saw it in the slide. So this is the formal rules governing HRM. So this just talks about that every country would have a different labor law, right? India has a different labor law as compared to US, right? Now, generally firms have, I would say, their own formal code of conduct and all, but the HR function has to follow the local law, the labor law, and they have to ensure that that is enforced for expats. Right? So expats may not be aware of the local laws, labor laws. So the training and development of expats includes these knowledge of the local governing laws, right? And at the same time, the sensitivity training that we talked about, the informal. This is just like a detail of some of the issues which got created because of the improper or lack of attention to training and development. It has some instances like an American expat made a presentation to Prime Minister of Caribbean country by starting with Honorable Mr. Tolles. Right? Prime Minister interrupted. Then it happened multiple times. He was the former Prime Minister who had been deposed by the current Prime Minister. Right? So the formal training was not provided to the expat, and then you could imagine the rest of the business meeting, how would it have moved forward. So you can just go through it. There are these different instances, either formal or cultural aspects not being focused on. Right? And yeah, again, I think it's we are getting into the same set of variables where from the HR perspective, whether having an expat program adds value, right? Again, it would go into the questions of how much, what is the benefit of it, right? And what would be the cost elements which would have to be factored for an expat? What would be the revenue generated if the expat takes control or takes spend some time in a particular stream of work? All those things. So does expat as an activity for HR add value, right? Again, does it bring, so this is the Vrio framework, does it bring rarity, which means development of expats brings unique skills, rare skills, cross skills or cross skilling of the employees. Does it make the organization more rare in terms of its capabilities, and maybe raise barriers to imitation by the competitors, right? So that is the Vrio framework. Yeah, so we saw expatriation, then repatriation, right? Then there's something called impatriation. Now, impatriation is not because there is a expat program in the company. It is just maybe a temporary scenario where somebody left the position in some country or maybe in the headquarters of the company, and for a temporary period, there is a I would say requirement there to be filled till the next person joins. So that is also that can also happen where people assume temporary roles, and they are called impatriation. So as an HR, I don't know whether you have gone through this in the HR course which you have had. So you have to be curious, be competent, courageous, caring, and then have a proactively look out for your international career options. So any question or questions? Any questions?
No, sir.
From my side, there's only one question. Like, as I found, like the Indian companies, if they are hiring for their overseas positions, and they hire either they send Indian for overseas position, so they still keep a salary difference if they hire from their side, like from the local that country, either they send from India. So at the same way. And the same way, if we look at the company which headquarters in suppose Europe, they want people in India, so they pay higher than whatever Indian can pay you in India. So that difference just I want to share with people, because I found many ways, like the suppose European company want to hire a person in India, he will pay more. But if Indian company has to hire same profile in India, he will pay less. Even if he's sending in Europe also, he pays less. So the mindset of people are, very difficult when they do a recruitment for other countries. Indian companies, they always cut the cost. If the multinational, either different companies, they always maintain a certain benchmark that is globally, I think it is matching everywhere.
Definitely, Ashish, and thanks for sharing that. It is the mindset of the strategy, the core strategy and the culture of the firm, which dictates these decisions, right? So the person who is joining as the expat should not feel that he's different from the rest. Should be at parity with his colleagues. That is one perspective when the MNC European MNC is hiring, for example. But the Indian company will always factor cost because we have one key position, which is cost. So they would always say we are providing you the same set of skills with lesser cost. So that becomes the USP. So that is the mindset. And we have people who are ready to take both positions, right? People are just like Jaideep was also mentioning, we would rather be in New York than in Mumbai, right? Or Mumbai. So it's both. We are a developing country, or I would say we are more than developing now. May not be completely developed, but still we would rather experience a developed country for some time. That also drives the labor towards these expat roles.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Ashish, for sharing. Yes, in fact, Infosys also, right? So definitely, and with H1B and all, I think they are being forced to localize TCS, Infosys, many other companies. Awesome. So, any questions before we get into the exam discussion?
Because we got one email from Mr. Our what called Rajan sir that the pattern is looking changed this time, and it is a kind of short answer and essay type and then case studies, and the exam options are like that. If university allows, people have to go campus. Either if not campus, then that will be online, and pattern will be same for both.
Yes, so I'll just show a sample question paper for that. Let me just take out the questionnaire. Can you see the Word document?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this is generally the format of the exam. There are 3 sections, A, B, C. Okay. And you'll have short answers for the first section. You can, that is 5 marks per question. You have to answer any 4 of the 6. Generally, you'll have 6 options. You can answer any 4, and that is 5 marks per question. So whenever we are discussing the what terms are the ones which are generally asked. So you'll have things like what is global business, right? Then what is the difference between primary activities and support activities? What are the benefits of internalization? So this is what, okay, all the terms that the glossary, the definitions, that is what is included in this what. They're not big essay type. You just need to have a definition of it. Okay. So any doubts here?
So yes, sir. So like these are short answer questions. So 5 marks. So we should include only like important points and explain it, or like considering it is 5 marks, or only just.
So for example, Jerry, if we ask, okay, what is ethnocentrism, right? You can just define what is ethnocentrism, and maybe a one-liner on maybe an example, like US is a ethnocentric culture, something like that. Right? That's all. There's not much explanation required here. So this will be what question. So you just need to define the term.
In our own words.
Yeah. So the definition should match with what we have learned. It need not be exact, word by word from the book or from the slides, but it should be similar to that. Yeah. So this is the definition section is what section A is. You don't have to explain much. Don't fill pages there. You just need to define the term. You don't have to worry about explaining anything. Okay.
So not word by word, but for example, like what is meant by global business, if there will be like a formal definition. So we will give that, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
formal Wikipedia, Google definition, or the textbook definition instead of like in our own perception.
Yeah, so it has to be in line with our the things that we have learned in our class. So you can use the slides, you can use the Word documents of the chapters. Everything is available on the Google Drive, right? And you can learn from there, and then you, you can respond to it. It doesn't have to be word by word. But it should not be completely different also, right? It has to be in line with. So you can refer to the slides as the benchmark, slides and the Word documents of the chapters.
Okay.
Okay, then there is a section B, which is a short essay kind of questions. Here it is 10 marks per question, and there are 5 questions. Okay, and this can be more on why. Okay, and it can be more on properties or attributes or categories of questions. So this is 5 questions of 10 marks each, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 questions, so 5 out of 7 you have to answer here. And these can be detailed questions, right? So for example, here we talk about institution framework. So what are the 2 core propositions underpinning an institution-based view? How do institutions matter? How do rules of the game influence? So you have to explain the entire institution framework that you have to explain in detail, and always use visualizations wherever needed. You can simply draw it with your hand. Doesn't matter the quality. You don't have to be exactly drawing a circle or an ellipse, but you can always draw and visualize. That also helps. In slides also we have seen, right? Then this is the resource capability framework question. So you need to define resource capability, the VO framework, which variables which we see in that, right? So you will see here more detailed illustrative kind of questions, and more why. So it will be, why do firms go through the international trade? What are the reasons, right? Explain steps for entering foreign markets. There is an entire chapter on this, right? So what is the step-by-step model that we saw? You have to explain this here. So these are relatively bigger, essay questions. Alliances to acquisition, we saw that, right? One slide from alliance to acquisition in our last session. So these are bigger questions. And we just finished this one, 4 strategic choices in the integration responsiveness framework, which is localization, replication, and then transnational, right? So these would be these big questions where you can mention the core framework or the core whatever has been asked, and then you might have to also state some reasons. You might have to explain your point of view. Those kind of things will come here. Any questions here?
This is okay, sir. We can go to next. This is fine.
Yeah, okay. And so if the first section is about what, this is more to do with why and how kind of questions, okay? And wherever we have discussed the how and why is where these questions will come from. Then section C is more case analysis. So you can think of it as the assignment related questions that we have, right? About Swiggy and Uber Eats, those kind of scenarios. We'll talk about some, that would be more like an assignment question, and then you have to analyze, right? So these are again 10 marks. There is no choice here. 3 case studies, you have to respond to all 3, right? And they are 10 marks. So they can have sub questions like 1A, 1B here you see, right? So overall it would be 10 marks. So for example, we will just go through one, like General Electric is a US company. Now, it is afraid to lose its leadership position in the markets to the companies in the emerging markets, right? So what is happening in the emerging markets for GE to be afraid of? And what can it be, what can it do differently to maintain its position? So you need to use, here we are not talking about framework or anything. You have to say, okay, this is the framework I will use to analyze, and this is, so for example, what is happening to happening in the emerging markets. So what have we studied in global business which helps explain emerging markets, right? Maybe we have this what are the factors that make the market attractive, right? We have studied those. So you use that to respond to it, and then say that these are the higher competitiveness, the early advantage, all those things you have to bring in, which would make a GE think about emerging markets as a threat. Then what can GE do is you can follow a framework where how to enter a foreign market, or your resource capability framework, or your institutional framework. And again, there is nothing right or wrong, right? Whatever analysis you do is your own analysis, and you have to explain your perspective and use any of the frameworks, any of the concept that we have learned. You're free to do that. Any questions here?
So I think what email Mr. Rajan sent, that pattern is different. So I don't know either you have got updated from him or not. The pattern says that there will be 3 questions of 5 marks, and that first what you says it is like 4 to do out of 5. This is 3 questions of 5 marks. It's like 1 sentence or 2 sentences. Then there is a 4 questions of 10 marks, and out of 5 we do 4, and the case study will carry 45 marks. So, and he says that this overall 100 will be weighted as a 40%, and
Yes.
assignment will be weighted as 60%.
Yes, so your assignment are 60 marks. This would be 40, right? So there might be a reconfiguration of the marks for the section. So I'll check with Professor Rajan. These might be 15 marks each, right? Like you're saying, 45 marks of case studies, right? And these might be lesser in terms of number. So there might be only 3 questions here, and might be only 4 questions here.
Perfect,
right?
sir. Yes.
But but the questions don't change. Okay, the nature of questions remains same. Okay, so this is 2018 format or 19 format. So I just wanted to show that to you. So the nature of questions is this. Okay, and like you're saying, the first section is more about definition. So 2-3 lines maximum. You define the term. That's all. Very limited. You don't have to explain much. But the second section is about more explanation, how part of it. So you have to in detail explain it. Case studies, you have to use everything that you know in global business that you have learned, and you have to explain. And these would be very open-ended questions, right? You can use anything from global business. So it's like a why and how everything combined, what framework to use, how to respond. Something is completely up to you. So I hope the nature of questions is clear.
Yes, sir.
Right? The number of marks can vary, but the questions, the category or the nature of questions remains same. Okay, any questions here? This is your kind of final exam question paper.
The only one thing, sir, Jadip writes like a bird. So how examiner will read it becomes challenging.
That's okay. That's not considered under evaluation, so don't worry.
Sorry. And sir, assignments, like we have 2 assignments, so it is 25 each. So remaining 10 you will balance in that, either another thing you will
No. So I've actually we have scaled it up to 30 both. So
Okay.
whatever you got out of 25 has been scaled to 30.
Okay, sir, that's fine.
Okay. So the first assignment you would have received the grades yesterday.
Yes, sir.
So
But notice right now it is saying time submitted late, but actually I remember I had done it before deadline, so I don't know how it changed to late.
that's fine. That should not matter in the evaluation. That's fine. See, there were some changes done by the administrative staff also, so that should be okay. That doesn't impact evaluation.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So
For
yeah,
example, if we can like recheck and resubmit a new updated version, it will be rechecked.
which one?
Assignment 1 also.
No, that doesn't happen. So that is only a single submission.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. So thanks a lot. Yeah.
Any other questions? I think Jaideep, you have just shared in the chat the number of questions for each section.
Rajan sir made it like.
Yeah, that's fine. But the nature of questions for each remains. Okay. Okay. Please upload the assignment too, preferably during the weekend, this weekend. And any other doubts on the exam part?
I think, sir, exam part we are clear. The thing is only either it should go online or in a campus, which is not clear. So if we are getting online, then definitely it becomes a very difficult, while making some sketch or making something, something like block diagram, something in the word, it takes time. We tried last time. So then let us see if how we can answer well on the typing and online giving sentences or giving the things. But there is options of insert of the table, block, everything. But generally, we are less adaptive to those things. So we'll see if it's coming online and how we'll handle.
Sure. You can also use draw it in a PPT and then paste it in the Word.
Yeah, but this says that there is an option you can write on a paper and you can scan it and attach it.
That is also there. Yes.
Yeah. So no problem, sir. I think it's fine. We have learned so far from the classes. Definitely, in some time, we are taking the classes. But definitely, we have to go through again all slides and recording. We may get back again.
Yeah, and that's what. So even during that time, when you are preparing for the exam, there is a WhatsApp group is all on there. So you can always reach out for clarifications of any questions or any terms or any concepts, frameworks. we can always discuss. You can always ping on the WhatsApp group that we have, and we can always discuss. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and yeah, generally, so this kind of completes our global business course for trimester 3. This is my 5th batch. So I hope you enjoyed the global business course, and
So,
if there are any areas of improvement for me, you can just share your feedback, and I can incorporate those in the further batches. So
sir, actually, there were no minimum people, nobody taking global business specialization for trimester 4, or I would have been interested.
yeah, that because it's a, I would say, a culmination of multiple management streams, and also you don't generally see global business as a specialization, or even in companies there are no roles directly linked to global business, right? So that's where, but
International management, is it same as global business or different?
can you repeat that?
International management.
Yeah, it's this same lines. Yes, it's on the same lines. International management.
So yeah, so for example, in my company, I figured like global business would matter. It is like 72 countries working. So that
Yes, yes, that would definitely be a good role. You would have mid to senior management taking up those roles. But generally, what happens is they are internally, hired for those roles. So if you're taking global business as a specialization, it may or may not result in you getting those roles, right? The, that is also one scenario.
yes, but for example, at the time of the decision, if the senior management makes, they would have seen my resume and preferred, for example, like that.
Potentially, that might happen. Depends. I really can't. I mean, uh, we can't say anything there. But yes, potentially that might impact. But yeah, global business is has the advantage of bringing in these. We just saw HR. We also saw parts of accounting, finance, economics. We saw so many dimensions. So that is the good part of it. It's more interdisciplinary. Um,
So global business in the as a specialization, what else we get to learn if we take it?
Yeah, so I think that for that I'm actually only taking the trimester 3, so I'm not aware of what would be there in that as per the curriculum of the university. But I would say it would deep dive into each of these what we have seen. So you can still consider these as an overview. For example, we talked about HR right now, the expat. Maybe that goes into how to actually do an appraisal, how to do the compensation management, all those things. It would dive into those areas. It would dive into more, I would say, uh, dimensions of cultural side, like we have the Hofstede's framework, how to apply that, those kind of things.
Okay, sir. I think I just got it in the DSE website. It says global HR, global sales, marketing
Yeah.
and distribution, global
So
finance and projects.
it is, I would say, see, there are 2-3 core streams of management: your HR, finance, marketing, sales. These are the core management streams. Everything around it is augmenting these core streams. Just 1 second, guys. 1 second, hold on. 1 second.
कब आया था हम लोग घर में? यहाँ पे कब आया था? हाँ, तो अजीत पाता है ना?
Yeah. So